I'm up here in my backyard just enjoying Mother Nature and studying more on the Council of the Gods. And I have another study by a gentleman discussing the Council of the Gods in the flood narrative in the Hebrew Bible. He's getting ready to fly. Darn it, I'm spooking him. He's a good looking bird, isn't he? Yeah. Look at that gorgeous hawk. He's getting ready to go. No, he flew off. There he goes. Yeah, he flew off in the trees. Okay, it's time to start talking about the Council of the Gods anyway. It's an absolutely beautiful evening. I'm right up here next to the Rhodes Ranch. Right up here on the ridge here. Oh, it's a beautiful evening. There's a beautiful sunset. Now I got to give a beautiful discourse to match the beautiful wildlife I've been videoing, plus the beautiful sunset. So here we go. I have some stuff on the Council of the Gods. In the biblical flood narrative, very interesting information from 2004, just a few years back, with the ancient Near Eastern type of literature that's been being discussed and discovered in the Council of the Gods. The Bible is being re-examined, as properly it should. And in the course of re-examining the Bible and its narratives, its various stories, its poetical structures, its type of literature that it is, the scholars are recognizing potential further numerous council scenes. And I think this is exquisitely interesting to observe. Okay, I'm out here with the hawks and the lizards. I'm showing you a picture of the Manan Butte out on the Snake River Plain here in Idaho. It's one of the ancient caldera. Last time it spewed a whole bunch of lava around our area about the time of Christ. But that's the Manan Butte. And we're in a beautiful evening this evening. It's really got some great clouds and some spectacular clouds. Just awesome. And of course I love the clouds, and I love the mountains, and I love my backyard. And I love the subject I'm about to discourse upon. I have a new subject. Make sure I don't bump the camera here. I have a new subject. Well, not a new subject, but a new study on an old subject by Samuel Shaviv. And this is the polytheistic origins of the biblical flood narrative. This is in the Vetus Testamentum for 2004. Very interesting how the scholars are analyzing various aspects. Isaiah 6 on the Council of the Gods theme. Amos chapter 3 now, David Bakovoy, the LDS Near Eastern specialist. Dan McClellan is discussing the Council of the Gods on various areas on the internet now. I've been discussing the Council of the Gods with several scholars as they assess the evidence of the ancient Near Eastern type scene, as Dr. Key has said in his study of the Council of the Gods, this type scene of this council. When we know what we're looking for now, because we've got the Ugaritic texts, and we have the Babylonian parallels, we have the Assyrian parallels, we have the Mesopotamian parallels, we know this is a standard theme. There's Egyptian parallels to this Council of the Gods, and now we know the Hebrew Bible has it. Shaviv notes something very interesting about the flood narrative that I want to discuss with you a little bit. And I'm not going to go through all of his interesting material on the various scholarly approaches to this narrative. He says, however, that, this is on page 528, he asks, were Elohim and Yahweh different names of the same God, or were they the names of different gods which merged into one, with or without the reputed combination of two sources? The use of the different divine names reflects the polytheistic beliefs of the first authors of the flood narrative. He notes from other scholars' assessments of this narrative before him, he says, this story of the flood, the Noahic flood in the Hebrew Old Testament, is surely polytheistic. There are two gods. And he discusses how God changes his mind twice in the story of Noah. First, he regrets having created the world, Genesis 6, verse 7. Then he decides that he will not bring another flood, even though man's evil, which is the cause of the flood, continues. The question is this one God or is this two gods? Because the structure of the story as we have it now presents some interesting anomalies and difficulties if there was only one God, and if we recognize that the polytheistic aspect of this story has been rewritten with a monotheistic bias, then we have the difficulties. If we understand it as different gods conversing with each other in the council of the gods, as Shaviv notes, then the difficulties disappear. It's an interesting situation. He notes on page 530 that nowhere in the flood narrative is it explicitly stated, or is it even hinted at, that the names Yahweh and Elohim signify one and the same God. And he further says, are not all of us, including the scholar Westerman, who is trying to indicate the flood narrative is dealing with just one God, although he recognizes the problems in this, Westerman can't overcome the problem, so Shaviv is taking up the issue here. The issue here is, are we not misled in our belief in one and an amythical biblical God? Are we not misled by an age-old monotheistic indoctrination? Because the later doctrine of monotheism has been stamped back onto the Bible, nowhere more strongly than Isaiah chapters 40 through 44, but also in our flood narrative now. Because of this, we have anomalies. But if we understand this as a council of the gods scene, they completely disappear. I think that's fascinating. It's a very interesting situation. And then he goes through the details of Yahweh and Elohim. Yahweh wanting to destroy mankind because of their wickedness. Elohim being the deity who warned Noah, hey, here comes the flood. The council has decreed you're going to be flooded out. You better build an ark. I think that's so fascinating how he says later redactors, this is on page 532, later redactors could not accept that Yahweh, the national God of Israel, a secondary only to Elohim, the God of the world entire, could be presented with such a destructive role as destroying the whole earth with a flood. So the redactor rewrote this, is basically Shaviv's theme. This theme is not such a wild theme. We know the Bible has been redacted. That is, it's been rewritten in different places. From later ages, who had different beliefs and different doctrines, they have written their beliefs back onto the sacred record. This is the famous Deuteronomist history. The idea that Margaret Barker says is the Deuteronomist reform of Josiah, King Josiah, in Lehi's day. 600 BC approximately. 630, something like that BC. The prototype, of course, of the Council of the Gods, he says, is the Canaanite Council of the Gods, which it is. And he says in the Sumero-Akkadian version of this Council of the Gods theme, the plan of the flood is announced, and it's debated, and it's discussed in the Council of the Gods. This is the type of theme that Israel adapted into their narrative. We know they were influenced by the Canaanitish pantheon of the gods because of so many psalms reflecting this. Psalm 29 being a very, very famous one.